The Psychology of Thank You, Chapter 1. Two Simple Words, A Vast Inner World. Thank you is a tiny bridge between inner experience and outer reality. On one side stands your private world, needs, vulnerabilities, fears, longings. On the other side stand other people, carrying their own invisible histories. When you say thank you quietly acknowledge that your life has just been touched by someone else's choice, effort, or presence. Psychologically, those words perform several actions at once. They recognize that you are not entirely self-sufficient. They acknowledge that another person had the option not to act and did anyway. They highlight a moment where your well-being depended even slightly on forces beyond your control. In that sense, thank you is an antidote to the illusion of total independence. Most people think gratitude is only about politeness, a thin cultural coating on top of real life. In fact, it reveals the structure of our inner world. When you resist saying thank you, something inside is being protected. Perhaps pride, perhaps an old wound, perhaps a belief that needing others is dangerous. When thank you comes easily, it often reflects a more secure inner base, an understanding that depending on others is not humiliation but part of being human. There is also a subtle shift in perspective when you say thank you. For a moment, you step out of the center of your own story. Your attention moves from what I need, what I lack, what I fear, to what has been given, what exists, what someone else has done. This shift feels small, but psychologically it is powerful. It interrupts the constant narrative of deficiency that so many minds run all day. In that interruption, anxiety often loosens its grip. Anxious thinking largely orbits around threat and loss. Gratitude orients towards safety and gain, however small. To say thank you sincerely is to admit, for at least one breath, that reality includes help, support, and kindness as well as danger. That admission does not deny pain. It simply refuses to let pain be the entire story. Thank you is also a form of micro-forgiveness. You forgive the world for not being perfect, because in this moment it has offered something good. You forgive yourself for not being completely independent, because in this moment you allow yourself to receive help without self-attack. You forgive the other person for all the ways they are not ideal, because right now you choose to see the part of them that gave. Lessons from this chapter 1. Every thank you carries an implicit recognition of your own limits and someone else's freedom. 2. Resistance to gratitude usually reveals a defended place inside you, not a neutral preference. 3. Gratitude gently moves attention from what is missing to what is present, disrupting cycles of anxiety and complaint. Chapter 2. Gratitude in Mind, Brain, and Body. Psychology and neuroscience suggest that thank you is not just a social ritual. It is a small emotional exercise that literally trains the nervous system. When you focus on what has been given, your attention shifts away from threat scanning. This shift influences the brain's alarm systems and the body's stress responses. Fear and chronic stress activate systems designed to detect danger and mobilize you to fight or flee. Gratitude, by contrast, engages systems linked to safety, connection, and learning. When you notice kindness or support, even briefly, your brain receives a signal. For this moment, survival is not the only task. Connection is possible. That signal allows your body to soften, breathing deepens, muscles unclench, your gaze widens. Thank you is the conscious expression of that signal. Consider two people receiving help. One says nothing, barely acknowledges it, and continues scanning for the next problem. The other pauses, feels the reality of what has been done, and says, "Thank you." Their outer circumstances may be similar, yet their internal environments differ sharply. The second person is more likely to experience positive emotion, build trust, and store the memory as evidence that the world can sometimes be safe. Over time, repeated experiences of gratitude appear to reshape attention. The mind becomes more skilled at noticing what is supportive rather than only what is threatening. This does not magically remove danger, but it alters the ratio. Life is no longer perceived as only risk. That shift can reduce feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, which are central in many forms of psychological distress. There is also a cognitive component. When you say thank you make an implicit interpretation. What happened matters, and the person who did it matters. You create meaning around the event. Meaning making is profoundly protective. People can endure intense hardship if they can see even small threads of meaning. Gratitude stitches such threads quietly into everyday life. Furthermore, gratitude enhances memory in a particular way. Moments that end with sincere appreciation are more likely to be recalled as positive episodes. When you later review your day, those memories stand out, giving you the sense that life contains kindness alongside difficulty. This retrospective effect helps counter the brain's natural bias toward remembering threats more vividly than blessings. Lessons from this chapter 1. Thank you functions as a micro signal of safety to your brain and body. 2. Regular gratitude practice trains attention to notice supportive aspects of reality, not only threats. 3. By creating meaning and positive memory traces, gratitude strengthens resilience against stress and despair. Chapter 3. Pride, vulnerability, and the difficulty of receiving. If thank you is so beneficial, why do many people find it awkward or even painful? The answer lies in pride and vulnerability. To say thank you is to admit that someone else had power to affect your well-being. For certain personalities and histories, this admission feels risky. Some individuals grow up in environments where dependence is punished or mocked. They learn that needing others brings shame. As adults, they strive to appear invulnerable. For them, thank you can feel like an exposure, as if they are saying, I could not do this alone. I am weak. To avoid this feeling, they minimize others' contributions, change the subject, or even respond with criticism instead of appreciation. There is also the issue of control. Gratitude acknowledges that you are indebted in a non-financial sense. For someone who fears being controlled, this can be terrifying. They may feel that by accepting help and expressing thanks, they are entering a contract with unclear terms. It seems safer to refuse kindness or downplay it than to risk feeling obligated. On the other side, some people cannot easily hear thank you directed at them. When someone appreciates them, they deflect. It was nothing. Anyone would have done it. Don't mention it. Beneath this reflex may lie beliefs of unworthiness. If I take in their gratitude, I must also confront the fact that I mattered. That contradicts my long-held conviction that I am insignificant or defective. In both giving and receiving, thank you touches deep structures of self-esteem and attachment. It is not just a phrase, it is a test of how safe it feels to rely on others and to be relied upon. When that safety is compromised by history, trauma, or rigid beliefs, gratitude becomes a battlefield rather than a bridge. Working with this psychologically requires gentleness. For someone who fears dependency, the task is not to force gratitude, but to explore the story attached to needing others. Questions such as, what did it mean in your family to ask for help? Or, when you imagine saying thank you, what exactly feels dangerous? Can open doors. For someone who cannot accept appreciation, the work involves slowly allowing in the idea that their actions can genuinely benefit others, and that this does not condemn them endless obligation. Lessons from this chapter 1. Difficulty with gratitude often reflects fear of dependence, obligation, or unworthiness, rather than simple rudeness. 2. Saying thank you exposes the fact that you can be helped, which may feel threatening if independence has become a shield. 3. Healing involves examining the stories you learned about needing others and daring to test new, safer experiences. Chapter 4. The Hidden Power of Thanking Yourself. People frequently direct gratitude outward, but rarely inward. Yet the capacity to say thank you to oneself is psychologically crucial. It shapes self talk, identity, and the ability to grow without harsh self attack. Most inner dialogues are dominated by a critic. It points out mistakes, warns of possible humiliation, and demands better performance. While this voice sometimes protects you from real danger, it often overreaches, treating every error as evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Gratitude towards oneself introduces a different voice, one that notices effort, persistence, and courage. Imagine finishing a difficult day. The critic says, "You should have done more. You failed here, here, and here." The grateful self says, "You showed up under pressure. You kept going despite fear. Thank you for trying." The outer achievements are identical, yet the internal experience is radically different. Over years, that difference shapes what kind of person you believe you are. When you say an inner thank you to yourself, you also begin to reclaim past versions of yourself that survived hard situations with limited resources. Many adults judge their younger selves harshly. "I should have known better. I should have left sooner. I should have spoken up." Gratitude offers another interpretation. "Given what I knew then and the support I had, I did what I could. Thank you for getting me this far." This does not erase responsibility, but it tempers judgment with mercy. Psychologically, self gratitude supports motivation more effectively than self contempt. When efforts are acknowledged, you're more likely to keep investing. When every attempt is met only with criticism, motivation erodes. People think self attack will push them to improve. More often, it leads to paralysis and hidden resentment toward their own goals. Learning to thank yourself can feel strange or even embarrassing at first. Yet, it is an essential extension of the gratitude you offer others. You, too, are a person whose choices and efforts affect your well being. You, too, deserve recognition for moments of courage, honesty, and care, even when the outcome was imperfect. Lessons from this chapter 1. Inner gratitude counters the dominance of the inner critic and reshapes self identity over time. 2. Thanking your past self allows you to reinterpret history with compassion rather than endless self blame. 3. Self gratitude fuels sustainable motivation far better than harsh self judgment does. Chapter 5. How families teach or block gratitude. Your first lessons about thank you almost certainly emerged within family or early caregivers. Some households make appreciation explicit. Parents thank children for small contributions, siblings acknowledge each other's help, and adults model saying thank you even under stress. In such homes, gratitude feels normal, not theatrical. It becomes a native emotional language. Other families, however, communicate that gratitude is unnecessary or even weak. Caregivers may say, "You should have done that anyway, it's your duty." Or they may never have heard much appreciation during their own childhoods and simply lack the habit. Children raised in such environments learn that efforts are invisible and that emotional warmth is scarce. Saying thank you in these homes might be reserved for formal occasions, if at all. The psychological consequences are significant. A person who grew up without genuine appreciation may struggle to believe that their actions matter to anyone. When someone thanks them later in life, they may suspect manipulation. "They must want something from me." Conversely, a person raised with consistent gratitude may more easily trust that appreciation can be sincere. Family culture also influences what kind of help is considered worthy of thanks. In some homes, material support is assumed and therefore rarely acknowledged, while emotional support is praised. In others, emotional labor is expected and ignored, while financial contributions attract public recognition. This shapes which forms of giving children learn to value and which they unconsciously exploit. Healing generational patterns around gratitude requires deliberate effort. Adults can choose to offer their children what they themselves never received. Simple, specific, sincere thanks. Instead of vague praise, statements like, "Thank you for taking care of your younger brother. It helped me breathe for a moment," teach children that their presence has impact. Equally, parents can apologize and express gratitude to each other in front of children, modeling vulnerability rather than perfectionism. When you look back at your own family, it can be helpful to ask, what did thank you mean in that house? Who heard it most? Who almost never heard it? The answers reveal hidden hierarchies of value and may explain why certain relationships still feel unbalanced. Lessons from this chapter 1. Early family habits shape whether gratitude feels natural, suspicious, or unnecessary. 2. Different kinds of help, emotional, practical, financial, are valued differently in each family, influencing adult expectations. 3. Consciously modeling sincere, specific thanks in your current relationships can break inherited patterns of emotional neglect. Chapter 6. Thank you at work. Recognition, power, and dignity. In professional life, thank you often seems small compared with salaries, promotions, and formal evaluations. Yet psychological research and everyday experience converge on a simple truth. Lack of recognition quietly destroys morale, while genuine appreciation sustains people through pressure, monotony, and uncertainty. Workplaces are complex hierarchies where status, control, and resources are unevenly distributed. In such settings, gratitude is never purely innocent. It interacts with power. When a leader thanks someone, the words can either dignify their contribution or feel like a cheap substitute for fair treatment. When an employee thanks a leader, it can either express genuine respect or mask fear and dependency. Authentic appreciation at work has certain features. It is specific rather than generic. Thank you for staying late to help the team meet the deadline, rather than good job. It recognizes effort, not just outcomes. Thank you for being honest about the problem early, even though it was uncomfortable. It avoids manipulation. Thank you, followed immediately by another demand, and stands on its own as acknowledgement. Psychologically, recognition answers a basic human question: do I matter here? When that question is met with silence, people detach. They may stay physically, but withdraw emotionally, doing the minimum necessary. When the question is answered with consistent appreciation, they are more likely to invest discretionary energy, the creativity, care, and persistence that no contract can compel. However, some work cultures misuse gratitude as a shield against legitimate criticism. Employees are told to be grateful to have a job, especially during crises, while their concerns about workload, fairness, or abuse are dismissed. In such cases, thank you becomes a tool of control rather than connection. Psychologically, this erodes trust and may lead to burnout or quiet rebellion. Healthy professional gratitude involves both appreciation and boundaries. One can say, "Thank you for the opportunity and support," while also stating, "These conditions are not sustainable," or "This request crosses a line for me." Gratitude should not be a muzzle. It should be an honest recognition of value within a larger conversation about reality. Lessons from this chapter 1. At work, genuine thank you dignifies people and answers the question, do I matter here? 2. Specific, sincere recognition strengthens motivation. Manipulative or empty praise eventually breeds cynicism. 3. Real gratitude can coexist with clear boundaries and honest feedback. It should never be used to silence legitimate concerns. Chapter 7. Thank you in dark times. Loss, failure, and trauma. It may seem almost cruel to speak of gratitude in the context of grief, failure, or trauma. When someone loses a loved one, a livelihood, or a dream, thank you can sound hollow or forced. Yet many people report that after the initial shock, moments of gratitude became lifelines through their suffering. Psychologically, intense pain narrows attention. The world appears reduced to what has been taken away. Over time, this can solidify into a global belief that life is only loss. Gratitude does not erase grief, nor should it. Instead, it gently widens the frame. Within that wider frame, sorrow and appreciation coexist. I miss them terribly, and I am thankful for every year we had together. This failure hurts, and I am grateful for what it taught me about myself and others. This both and stance is emotionally complex and difficult, yet deeply stabilizing. It prevents identity from fusing entirely with victimhood or catastrophe. You are not only the person to whom something terrible happened, you are also the person who continues to receive, to learn, to connect. Thank you becomes a quiet assertion of surviving agency. For those with traumatic histories, gratitude can be especially complicated. They may feel guilty being thankful, while others still suffer. Or they may fear that acknowledging any good will invite new harm. In some cultures and families, expressing satisfaction is believed to tempt fate, so people stay in a permanent posture of complaint as a superstitious defense. Working with trauma and gratitude demands respect. No one should be pressured to feel thankful for things that were genuinely abusive or unjust. However, they may eventually find themselves grateful for their own resilience, for people who helped them escape, for therapists or friends who believed them, or for new boundaries they learned to set. This gratitude does not sanctify the trauma, it honors the response. One of the most moving forms of thank you arises when people who have suffered use their experience to support others. A recovering addict thanks the group that welcomed them. A survivor of violence thanks those who listened without judgment. In these moments, gratitude weaves individual pain into shared meaning. The wound does not disappear, but it becomes connected to something larger than itself. Lessons from this chapter 1. In dark times, gratitude does not cancel grief. It widens the frame so that loss is not the only reality. 2. Trauma complicates gratitude, but people can still find authentic appreciation for resilience, allies, and new understanding. 3. Saying thank you from within suffering is an act of agency, asserting that you remain capable of receiving and giving meaning. Chapter 8. A life shaped by thank you. Ultimately, the beauty of thank you lies not in isolated moments, but in the kind of person you become if those words guide your life. To live gratefully is not to ignore injustice, deny pain, or pretend that everything is fine. It is to commit to seeing reality in fuller color, the shadows and the light, the harm and the help. A gratitude-shaped life begins with attention. You start noticing small things, a message that arrived at the right time, a stranger's patience, an older self's difficult decision that now protects you. You acknowledge these things not as entitlement, but as gifts, sometimes from others, sometimes from your own past choices, sometimes from forces you cannot name. You say thank you, inwardly or aloud. Over years, this practice alters your default posture. Instead of moving through the world with clenched fists, defending against every possible slight, you move more often with open hands. You still protect yourself when necessary. You still resist what is wrong. Yet you are no longer driven solely by fear or resentment. Appreciation, in quiet ways, becomes a source of strength. Relationships change as well. People feel seen when you thank them, especially for invisible labors. Emotional support, everyday chores, patience during your difficult phases. They may not verbalize it, but their nervous systems relax in your presence. You become someone with whom others do not always have to fight for acknowledgement. Trust grows in that soil. Gratitude also shapes decisions. When you are aware of what you value and whom you appreciate, you are less likely to sacrifice those things for empty rewards. You may choose a simpler lifestyle that allows more time with those you love. You may refuse opportunities that would demand betraying your integrity. In that sense, thank you quietly guides your sense of what is truly worth pursuing. Finally, a gratitude-centered life includes thanking yourself and life itself, not in a sentimental way, but with sober recognition. You recognize the ways you have endured, adapted, and changed. You notice how many stories could have ended earlier, harder, or colder, but did not. You do not romanticize suffering, yet you acknowledge that out of it emerged compassion, wisdom, and depth that now allows you to support others. Lessons from this chapter 1. A life shaped by thank you sees reality more completely, embracing both pain and goodness. 2. Consistent appreciation transforms relationships by making others feel seen, especially for their invisible efforts. 3. Gratitude clarifies values and decisions, supporting a life aligned with what truly matters rather than with fear or status alone. Closing reflection. Thank you is more than etiquette. It is a psychological doorway into humility, into connection, into resilience, into meaning. Each time you pass through that doorway, however briefly, you practice a particular way of being human, one that acknowledges dependence without humiliation, honors effort without worship, and holds suffering without surrendering to it. You do not need grand gestures to live this way. You need small, repeated choices to notice, to name, to appreciate, to say thank you to others when they show up, to say thank you to yourself when you persist, to say thank you to life for every fragment of goodness that appears amid the chaos. The more often you walk that path, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, gratitude is no longer something you perform, it is something you are. And then those two simple words, spoken or silent, become a quiet kind of beauty radiating through everything you touch. Chapter 9. When thank you becomes a mask. Not every thank you is born from freedom. Sometimes it grows out of fear. A child learns early that appreciation can be used as armor. In a tense home, they might discover that smiling, agreeing, and thanking quickly can reduce shouting, criticism, or withdrawal. Outwardly, they seem the good child, helpful, grateful, polite. Inwardly, they are terrified. Their thank you does not express genuine gratitude, it functions as a strategy for survival. This same pattern often persists into adulthood. Many people live with a deeply ingrained habit of appeasement. They apologize quickly, overthank everyone, and take responsibility for emotional climates they did not create. Underneath the constant thank you lies a simple, painful belief. If I stop pleasing, I will not be safe. Psychologically, this is called fawning, a survival response alongside fight, flight, and freeze. Instead of arguing, fight, escaping flight, or going numb, freeze, the person attempts to neutralize perceived threat by being unfailingly agreeable. Thank you becomes part of that performance. It is not an expression of truth, but a shield against anticipated rejection, anger, or abandonment. The cost is high. Fawning gradually erases a person's sense of authentic preference. If you say thank you reflexively to everything, you lose track of what you actually appreciate. You become fluent in gratitude as performance, yet illiterate in gratitude as feeling. Over time, resentment collects in the background. You may experience exhaustion, vague anger, or sudden outbursts that seem out of character because the compliant persona cannot contain the truth indefinitely. A useful question to ask yourself is, when I say thank you, what am I hoping to avoid? If the honest answer is conflict, anger, abandonment, humiliation, then part of your gratitude may be a mask rather than a mirror of your heart. Healing this pattern does not require you to become rude or arrogant. It requires you to reintroduce choice. You are allowed to delay your response, to check inside and ask, do I genuinely feel grateful right now, or am I trying to control their reaction? This inner pause is the birthplace of more honest living. There is a paradox here. Genuine gratitude is impossible without the right to not be grateful. If you cannot say no safely, you cannot say thank you freely. Until your boundaries are respected, internally and externally, gratitude will remain tangled with fear. Lessons from this chapter 1. Thank you can serve as a fawning strategy to reduce threat rather than a sincere response. 2. When gratitude becomes a mask, authentic preference disappears and resentment quietly grows. 3. Real gratitude requires the freedom to say no. Without boundaries, appreciation cannot be fully honest. Chapter 10. Gratitude, Power, and Invisible Chains. Gratitude is beautiful. Obligation is heavy. When the two are confused, thank you can become an invisible chain. In healthy relationships, giving and receiving are fluid. People help each other, and gratitude flows naturally. No one keeps an exact account, and both sides trust that care will roughly balance over time. In unhealthy dynamics, one person may weaponize their giving and demand gratitude as proof of devotion. Consider a parent who constantly reminds an adult child of all the sacrifices made in the past. After everything I've done for you, you owe me. The child may feel compelled to say thank you endlessly, to suppress criticism, and to remain available in ways that damage their own life. Here, gratitude has been twisted into a tool of control. The child's appreciation for real sacrifices is mixed with guilt, anger, and fear of rejection. Similar patterns appear in romantic relationships, workplaces, and communities. A partner may give financial support and then use it to silence objections. Be grateful. Anyone else would have left you. A boss may exploit economic vulnerability, framing exploitation as generosity. You should thank me for this opportunity. A spiritual or community leader may position themselves as irreplaceable savior, cultivating followers who feel perpetually indebted. Psychologically, such dynamics rest on asymmetries of power: economic, emotional, informational, or spiritual. Genuine gratitude is voluntary. Coerced thank you is a sign that someone is afraid to lose access to resources or love. When a person fears that withholding gratitude will trigger punishment, withdrawal, or shame, their appreciation is no longer free. It has become a performance under duress. An important inner skill is learning to separate recognition from submission. You can acknowledge real benefits you have received: food, shelter, training, emotional support, without agreeing that you must obey every demand from the giver. You are allowed to say, I appreciate what you did. I still have the right to make my own choices. This distinction is particularly crucial for people raised in environments where gratitude was linked to obedience. They may unconsciously believe that to be thankful is to surrender autonomy. As a result, they either avoid gratitude altogether or collapse into compliance whenever they feel indebted. Both extremes are painful and limiting. A mature thank you honors the gift without surrendering your dignity. It says, your action mattered, and so do my boundaries. Lessons from this chapter: 1. Power imbalances can corrupt gratitude, turning thank you into a tool of control and guilt. 2. Genuine appreciation is voluntary. When gratitude is demanded or coerced, it signals emotional or structural pressure. 3. Healthy gratitude separates recognition of help from loss of autonomy. You can be thankful and still choose your own path. Chapter 11. Chapter Emotional Debt, Scorekeeping, and the Price of Favor. Humans are social creatures who naturally track fairness. We remember who helped, who refused, who gave more, who took more. This tracking can promote cooperation. When generosity is reciprocated, trust grows. But when it hardens into a strict ledger, gratitude loses its warmth and becomes a currency. In some relationships, every gesture is recorded, consciously or unconsciously. I did this for you 3 times. You only did that once. I drove you last week, so you must drive me now. Appreciation is present, but it is transactional, almost contractual. Thank you means I acknowledge your contribution to our shared account. While such balance has its place, reducing all kindness to arithmetic drains relationships of grace. There is also the phenomenon of excessive emotional debt. Some individuals feel perpetually in arrears, no matter how much they give back. They may think, I can never repay my parents, I owe my partner everything, or without this company, I am nothing. These beliefs can make authentic gratitude impossible because the person feels too small, too obligated, too guilty to stand as an equal participant in the exchange of care. At the other extreme are those who experience gratitude as weakness and refuse any sense of owing. They might say, "Nobody does anything for free. If I accept help, they'll own me." To avoid the discomfort of indebtedness, they decline support or immediately overcompensate, returning favors in a way that leaves no space for simple appreciation. Their refusal to feel even temporary dependence prevents intimacy from deepening. Psychologically, emotional debt becomes dangerous when it obscures reality. A child may feel indebted to an abusive parent because that parent also provided food and shelter. An employee may feel indebted to a toxic employer because the job prevented financial ruin. In such cases, the narrative of "I owe them everything" can delay necessary separation or confrontation. The mind clings to gratitude as a defense against acknowledging harm. A healthier approach distinguishes gratitude from submission and fairness from scorekeeping. You are allowed to say, "I am thankful that you helped me then. I also recognize the ways you hurt me, and I am allowed to protect myself now." You can appreciate the real support you received from a job or person without granting them permanent authority over your present choices. Learning to give without constant mental accounting and to receive without being crushed by debt is part of psychological maturity. It does not mean ignoring fairness, it means valuing relationship over rigid balance. Sometimes you will give more, sometimes you will receive more. Over a lifetime, the goal is not perfect symmetry but mutual dignity. Lessons from this chapter 1. Natural concern for fairness can harden into rigid scorekeeping, turning gratitude into cold accounting. 2. Feelings of endless emotional debt can trap people in harmful dynamics by exaggerating what is owed. 3. Mature gratitude recognizes both benefits and harms, values dignity over exact balance, and allows giving and receiving without slavery to the ledger. Chapter 12. Cultural Scripts and Personal Freedom. No one learns thank you in a vacuum. Every culture, community, and family teaches particular rules, sometimes spoken, often silently, about when gratitude is appropriate, who deserves it, and what it should look like. In some environments, gratitude is loud and elaborate. People express thanks with formal phrases, gifts, ceremonies, and public acknowledgments. In others, appreciation is understated. A brief nod or a few quiet words carry deep meaning. Misunderstandings arise when individuals raised with different scripts interpret each other's behavior through their own lens. One person may feel unappreciated because they expect explicit thanks. The other may believe their subtle gesture was more than sufficient. Cultures also differ in their emphasis on individual rights versus collective duties. In communities that prioritize duty, people may feel that gratitude to elders, leaders, or benefactors must be lifelong and unquestioning. In cultures that emphasize autonomy, people may focus more on fairness and boundaries, sometimes appearing ungrateful to those from more hierarchical contexts. These differences are not merely intellectual, they are felt in the body as pride, shame, loyalty, or rebellion. On top of cultural patterns, there are gendered scripts. In many societies, women are taught, directly or indirectly, to be constantly grateful, especially in relationships and workplaces. They may be encouraged to say thank you for basic respect, minimal help, or opportunities that their male counterparts receive without being told to appreciate them. This can foster chronic minimization of injustice. I should be grateful they included me at all, even when inclusion is conditional or exploitative. Men, meanwhile, may be socialized to show less overt gratitude, associating emotional expressiveness with vulnerability or weakness. They might feel appreciation internally, but struggle to say the words thank you to friends, partners, or children. They may also interpret others' gratitude as suspicious, assuming there is always an agenda. The result is emotional distance, even when affection and respect are present beneath the surface. Recognizing these scripts is not about blaming cultures, families, or genders. It is about increasing freedom. When you understand the messages you absorbed about gratitude, you can decide which to keep and which to outgrow. You might choose to maintain certain traditions of respect while discarding ideas that demand your silence or obedience in the name of appreciation. A key step is noticing when the word ungrateful appears in your inner or outer dialogue. Who is calling whom ungrateful, and for what? Often, accusations of ingratitude hide deeper conflicts about power, boundaries, or unmet expectations. By examining those conflicts directly, you can respond more wisely than simply trying to be more thankful in ways that erase your needs. Ultimately, the goal is not to abandon cultural expressions of gratitude, but to inhabit them consciously. You can say thank you in ways that honor your heritage and your individuality. Your gratitude can be rooted in respect, not fear, in love, not obligation. Lessons from this chapter 1. Cultural, familial, and gendered scripts strongly shape how, when, and to whom gratitude is expressed. 2. Misjudgments of rudeness or ingratitude often arise from clashing expectations rather than actual lack of appreciation. 3. Understanding your inherited gratitude scripts allows you to choose expressions of thanks that honor both your background and your personal boundaries. Chapter 13. The Psychology of Saying No and Still Being Grateful. Many people secretly believe that gratitude and refusal cannot coexist. They imagine that to say thank you, they must also say yes to every request, every expectation, every subtle pressure. This belief slowly destroys authenticity and breeds quiet resentment. Psychologically, this confusion arises from an undifferentiated sense of self. If your boundaries were not respected in childhood, you may have learned that the only safe option is compliance. In that case, any refusal feels like a betrayal of those who once kept you alive. Gratitude then becomes entwined with self-abandonment. Yet it is entirely possible and profoundly healthy to say thank you and no. I'm grateful you thought of me. I'm not able to take this on. I appreciate your offer. It does not fit what I need right now. Thank you for inviting me. I will decline this time. Such statements embody a mature self who can acknowledge benefit without surrendering freedom. They also honor others by trusting them to tolerate your autonomy. When you assume that any boundary will shatter a relationship, you are treating the other person as fragile and untrustworthy. True respect includes giving others the chance to respond to your no with dignity. Of course, some people do respond badly. They may interpret your boundary as betrayal, disrespect, or ingratitude. This reaction reveals the actual nature of the relationship. If someone cannot accept a respectful no without punishing you, the structure between you is not reciprocity, but control. In that case, increasing gratitude will not solve the problem. Only clearer boundaries, and in some cases, distance will. Learning to combine thankfulness with refusal often begins in small situations. You might start by noticing where you say yes automatically and experiment with pausing. Ask yourself, am I genuinely willing, or am I agreeing because I'm afraid of being called ungrateful? If fear is the main driver, consider trying a gentle no and observing what actually happens. Reality is often kinder than the stories fear tells. Over time, practicing grateful boundaries strengthens your sense of self. You come to trust that your appreciation is real because it is no longer forced. When you say thank you, you know it arises from choice, not compulsion. That knowledge gives your words weight and your relationships depth. Lessons from this chapter 1. Many people confuse gratitude with obligation and lose the ability to refuse without guilt. 2. Combining thank you with a respectful no is a hallmark of psychological maturity and genuine respect for yourself and others. 3. The way someone responds to your grateful boundary reveals whether the relationship rests on mutuality or control. Chapter 14. Gratitude, identity, and the story you tell about your life. Every person carries a narrative about who they are and what their life has meant. Gratitude plays a subtle, powerful role in shaping that narrative. Consider two individuals with similar histories of hardship and support. One frames their story like this: "No one ever helped me. I had to do everything alone." The other says, "I struggled, but there were people who appeared at crucial times, and I'm thankful for them." Both have known pain. Yet the second person's narrative includes islands of kindness, which act as psychological anchors, points of stability amid chaos. This is not about denying reality. Some lives truly contain shocking levels of neglect or cruelty. Still, most stories also contain small, easily overlooked gestures: a teacher who listened, a neighbor who shared food, a stranger who offered brief protection, a book that provided insight at the right moment. Choosing to remember and honor these does not erase the darkness. It prevents the darkness from being the only author of your identity. Gratitude also influences how you view yourself in your own story. Are you solely the victim or also the responder? When you thank your younger self for decisions made under pressure, you begin to see yourself not just as someone to whom things happened, but as someone who acted within constraints. You start to recognize your own courage alongside your wounds. There is a risk, of course, in forcing gratitude. Telling yourself, "I should be thankful, others have it worse," can become another form of self-silencing. Real gratitude does not compare suffering. It grows precisely where pain is acknowledged, not minimized. The most honest stories sound like this: "What happened to me was wrong. It hurt deeply. I am also grateful for the people, moments, and inner strengths that allowed me to survive and grow." When you practice this kind of balanced gratitude, your identity changes. You become someone who is neither naive nor bitter. You see cruelty clearly, but you also see generosity. You remember betrayal, but you also remember loyalty. You resist both sentimental denial and total despair. This psychological stance equips you to move through the world with open eyes and a guarded yet hopeful heart. In the end, "thank you" is not just something you say in isolated moments. It is a thread you can weave through your entire life story. That thread does not cover the stains, but it does hold the fabric together. Lessons from this chapter 1. Gratitude influences the narrative you hold about your life, adding anchors of kindness amid hardship. 2. Honoring helpful people and moments does not erase injustice. It prevents pain from being the only author of your identity. 3. A balanced life story includes both clear acknowledgement of harm and genuine gratitude for the supports and inner strengths that made survival and growth possible. Chapter 15. Training attention. Seeing what you usually miss before "thank you" reaches your lips. It lives in your perception. If you do not see gifts, you cannot be moved by them. So the first practice is not speech, it is attention. The human mind is biased toward trouble. It looks for what is wrong, risky, painful, missing. This bias has survival advantages, yet it distorts your sense of reality. You may move through an entire day surrounded by small supports: cooperation, infrastructure, care, and notice almost none of them, while one criticism or inconvenience occupies your whole inner sky. To cultivate deep gratitude, you need to retrain where your gaze lingers. This is not the shallow advice to look on the bright side or ignore legitimate problems. It is a disciplined choice to widen the frame. Alongside questions like "what went badly" and "what must be fixed," you introduce others. Who made today a little easier without being asked? What small things sustained me that I usually treat as automatic? Where did I feel even a brief moment of relief, kindness, or beauty? Practically, you can begin with a deliberate exercise. At the end of each day, sit quietly and list 3 specific moments of benefit, however minor. Not abstractions like "my health," but concrete instances: a colleague who clarified a confusing task, a friend who answered a message, a stranger who held a door, the fact that water came from the tap when you turned it. For each, Pause long enough to feel the reality of how your experience would have been worse without it. The point is not to fabricate positivity, but to correct a perceptual imbalance. You are not adding fantasies. You are registering facts that anxiety and habit normally skim past. You can also practice this in real time. When something helpful happens, instead of rushing on, silently name it. This email reply saved me time. This driver slowed down so I could cross. The act of mental naming slows your mind enough for appreciation to form. Only then does a sincere thank you have room to arise. Over weeks and months, this training alters your default settings. You will still notice difficulties. Realism remains intact, but your picture of life becomes more textured. There are burdens and supports, frustrations and aids. Without any external change, the felt quality of existence shifts from bare struggle toward interwoven hardship and help. Such attention is not sentimental, it is sober. It does not deny darkness, but it allows you to register every candle. Practices from this chapter 1. End each day with 3 concrete moments of support or kindness, named in detail. 2. During the day, mentally acknowledge helpful acts or conditions in real time. 3. View this not as forced optimism, but as balancing a natural bias toward focusing only on problems. Chapter 16. The craft of saying thank you, so it lands. Many people assume that gratitude is a feeling only. In reality, it is also an interpersonal skill. One person's thank you leaves others unmoved. Another's brief sentence nourishes them for days. The difference lies in specificity, sincerity, and timing. Specificity means you describe what you are appreciating, not in vague categories, but in concrete terms. Compare. Thanks for everything. Thank you for staying after your shift to help me finish this report. I would have missed the deadline without you. The second message tells the person exactly what mattered. It acknowledges both the action and its cost. Psychologically, specificity signals that you truly notice them, not just the outcome. Sincerity is not about dramatic emotion. It is about alignment between your words and your actual state. If you say thank you while internally seething or indifferent, people sense the dissonance. Sincerity does not require enormous feeling. A quiet, grounded appreciation is enough. What matters is that you pause long enough to connect with the truth of what you are saying before you speak. Timing affects how gratitude is received. A delayed thank you can still be meaningful, but immediate acknowledgement carries a particular warmth. When possible, let appreciation follow the helpful act closely. This links your words with the other person's still fresh effort. At the same time, there is real power in remembering past kindnesses and naming them years later. I never told you properly, but what you did for me then changed my life. Such retrospective thanks tells the other person that their actions did not vanish into oblivion. There is another dimension, proportion. When someone offers something modest, overpraising them may feel exaggerated or manipulative. When someone makes a large sacrifice, a casual cheer may feel dismissive. Part of the craft of gratitude is allowing the weight of your words, tone, and attention to roughly match the weight of what was given. Finally, consider the medium. Speaking in person allows facial expression, tone, and presence to convey warmth. Writing a message creates a lasting record the other person can revisit. Small handwritten notes, short emails, even a few clear lines in a text can carry disproportionate impact when they are genuine and precise. Refining how you say thank you is not about politeness for its own sake. It is about delivering nourishment accurately. Kindness has already been given. Your role is to ensure it is also properly recognized. That recognition, when skillfully expressed, often encourages future generosity, not because you demand it, but because people feel safe and valued around you. Practices from this chapter 1. Make your thanks concrete. Name the action, the effort, and its impact on you. 2. Let your inner state and words match. Pause to feel before speaking. 3. Match the weight of your appreciation to the significance of what was given and choose a medium, spoken or written, that allows your message to be fully received. Chapter 17, Softening Conflict with Unexpected Appreciation. Conflict is inevitable wherever people care about anything. Disagreements over values, needs, and boundaries will always arise. Most people approach these moments armed only with criticism, defensiveness, or withdrawal. Few realize that carefully placed gratitude can transform the emotional climate of a difficult conversation without erasing the disagreement. The key is integrity. Appreciation must not be used as a trick to avoid hard topics. Instead, it can acknowledge what is valuable, even as you name what is painful. Imagine you are hurt by a friend's repeated lateness. One option is to confront them with pure accusation. You never respect my time. Another is to suppress your irritation and say nothing, building silent resentment. A third path begins with honest appreciation. I want to talk about something that's been bothering me. Before I do, I want you to know that I value how you show up for me emotionally. When I'm in trouble, you listen deeply. That matters to me. And because you matter, I need to tell you that when you arrive late, I feel unimportant. Here, gratitude does not dilute the issue. It frames it within a larger truth. The relationship itself is precious. Psychologically, this reduces perceived threat for both sides. The other person is less likely to feel fundamentally attacked and more able to hear the specific concern. Similarly, in professional disagreements, recognizing the other person's intention or effort can open space for productive dialogue. I appreciate how much you care about quality and how hard you've worked on this project. I see it. I also have real worries about this approach, and I'd like us to examine them together. This communicates respect without surrendering your stance. There is a deeper benefit. When you consciously see and name what is good in someone you are angry with, you protect your own humanity. You refuse the simplification that conflict tries to impose, turning the other into a villain and yourself into a flawless victim. By holding both appreciation and grievance, you remain capable of nuance, which is a precondition for genuine resolution. Of course, this approach has limits. In situations of ongoing abuse, manipulation, or severe power imbalance, leading with gratitude may be unsafe or inappropriate. The priority then is protection, not graceful dialogue. But in ordinary friction between basically decent people, unexpected appreciation can de escalate tension and remind both sides why the relationship is worth repairing. Learning to integrate thank you into conflict requires emotional discipline. It demands that you search for what you can honestly value in the other person, even when you are hurt or frustrated. This does not excuse harmful behavior. It simply makes space for repair instead of scorched earth. Practices from this chapter 1. In difficult conversations, begin by naming genuine qualities or efforts you appreciate in the other person. 2. State your concerns clearly after appreciation without minimizing them. Both truth and kindness are necessary. 3. Reserve this approach for relationships where basic safety and goodwill exist. In harmful situations, prioritize distance and protection. Chapter 18. Teaching and modeling gratitude in families and groups. Gratitude is contagious when lived, not preached. Parents, partners, leaders, and elders often wish those around them were more appreciative, yet unconsciously teach the opposite through their own habits. The most powerful way to foster a culture of thank you is to embody it consistently. In families, children watch how adults respond to everyday support. Do they speak with contempt about service staff, complain constantly about work, mock neighbors, or treat each other's efforts as invisible? Or do they frequently notice and name contributions, however small? A parent who thanks a child for setting the table or sharing toys communicates that the child's actions have real impact. When parents thank each other openly, "Thank you for cooking tonight," I appreciate you handling that difficult call. They normalize mutual recognition rather than silent assumption. Over years, such moments become part of the emotional climate in which children learn what relationships feel like. Teaching gratitude is not about forcing children or younger people to recite scripted phrases. It is about inviting them into awareness. Instead of barking, say thank you. You might quietly ask afterwards, how did it feel when they helped you? And then guide them to express that feeling in their own words. This develops both emotional vocabulary and genuine appreciation. In groups and organizations, leaders set the tone. If those in authority rarely acknowledge others, a culture of hunger and competition emerges. People begin to hoard recognition, undermine colleagues, or work purely for external rewards. When leaders habitually thank team members, publicly for significant contributions and privately for personal sacrifices, they create an atmosphere where appreciation flows more freely sideways as well, between peers. It is important, however, that gratitude in groups remains credible. When public recognition is used as a substitute for fair policies, people eventually see through it. Employee of the Month banners mean little if workloads are brutal and voices ignored. Authentic cultures of appreciation combine visible thanks with structural respect, reasonable expectations, clear boundaries, and honest listening. Within friend circles and informal communities, you can quietly become an anchor of appreciation. Without lecturing anyone, simply start expressing sincere thanks more often for invitations, for listening, for shared humor, for small acts of care. Over time, others frequently begin to mirror this behavior, not because they were instructed, but because it feels good to be seen and to see. There will be resistance. Some people feel embarrassed when thanked. Others may mistrust your motives if they have known only manipulative praise. Patience is required. You are not trying to convert anyone. You are simply choosing the stance you will bring into shared spaces. The rest will unfold gradually. The legacy of such modeling is invisible yet profound. Years later, people often remember not the exact words you used, but the atmosphere you created, one in which efforts were noticed, where people did not feel like replaceable parts, where thank you was a natural part of the air. Practices from this chapter 1. Model daily appreciation in front of children, partners, and peers instead of merely demanding it. 2. Invite younger people to notice how help feels and to express that in their own language. 3. As a leader or informal influence, combine verbal thanks with fair structures so that recognition remains trustworthy and nourishing. Chapter 19. Designing Personal Rituals of Thanks. Spontaneous gratitude is precious, yet relying solely on spontaneity leaves appreciation at the mercy of mood and circumstance. Personal rituals offer structure, simple, repeatable practices that keep thank you alive even on days when your heart feels dull or heavy. Rituals do not need to be elaborate, they need to be intentional. One approach is to anchor gratitude to existing daily transitions. For example, morning. Before checking any device, name one person you are glad exists and one aspect of your current life that would hurt to lose. Whisper a brief thanks for their presence for the opportunity inherent in this day. Midday. Choose one interaction, however ordinary, in which you will consciously express appreciation. A colleague, a shopkeeper, a family member. Make your thanks specific. Evening. Write or speak aloud 3 acknowledgments, one for someone else, one for yourself, one for life in general. These need not be profound. Consistency matters more than intensity. Another ritual involves objects. Some people keep a small bowl or jar and slip notes into it whenever they experience something worth remembering. These may be events, phrases, or moments of insight. Over time, the container fills with evidence that good has woven itself through your days, even in difficult seasons. Revisiting the notes during low periods can recalibrate your perception. You can also design social rituals. Regularly send brief messages of appreciation, once a week, for instance, to people who cross your mind. Not elaborate letters, just simple acknowledgments. Thinking of the way you encouraged me last year. It still helps. Such messages often arrive at uncanny moments for the recipients, reminding them that their existence matters beyond immediate transactions. Crucially, rituals must be flexible enough to survive imperfect adherence. If you miss a day, a week, a month, you simply resume without self punishment. The aim is not to earn moral points, but to create a structure that gently inclines your life toward gratitude more often than not. Over years, these small practices do something quiet but monumental. They turn thank you from a reaction into a rhythm, from an occasional spark into a steady flame. Practices from this chapter 1. Attach simple gratitude actions to daily transitions, morning, midday, evening, to build a stable rhythm. 2. Use tangible tools, a jar of notes, a notebook, digital reminders, to capture and revisit moments of appreciation. 3. Create low-pressure social rituals of thanks, such as regular brief messages, and return to them without self-criticism whenever you drift. Chapter 20. Aging, Regret, and the Quiet Gratitude of Later Years. As life progresses, thank you changes temperature. In youth, it often feels quick, bright, and casual. There is an assumption, rarely spoken, that chances will keep arriving. Relationships will repair themselves. Time will stretch. Later, that sense of endless possibility shifts. Health fluctuates, roles change, loved ones die, and the horizon grows more visible. In this landscape, gratitude becomes slower, heavier, more deliberate. Psychologically, aging confronts you with losses, capacities, illusions, unresolved dreams. It also confronts you with a stark accounting of how you have treated others and yourself. Old conflicts reappear in memory. Choices that once seemed trivial reveal long consequences. Some look back and feel almost entirely bitterness. Others feel mostly appreciation. Most hold both, but the balance matters. Gratitude in later life is not about pretending the disappointments were minor. It is about allowing the entire story to be more than its wounds. When an older person says, "I am thankful for the years I worked hard. I am also sad I missed so many moments with my children," that is grown-up gratitude, containing ambivalence without collapsing into either denial or despair. There is also a shift in direction of thanks. Earlier in life, much gratitude focuses on what has been gained, opportunities, freedoms, pleasures. With time, more appreciation is directed at what has remained. The friend still calling after decades, the partner who stayed through illness, the parts of the body that still function, the mind that can still learn. This does not romanticize decline. It simply notices loyalty in people, in organs, in habits that has carried you further than you once imagined. Regret complicates this process. Many people hesitate to feel thankful because they believe they do not deserve it. They recall betrayals, cowardice, addiction, neglect, and feel that to receive goodness now would be an insult to those they hurt. So they unconsciously punish themselves by refusing both comfort and appreciation. They cannot say thank you to others or to life because they are still busy saying, "How dare you offer me anything?" From a psychological standpoint, this is another expression of shame. Shame says, "Because I did wrong, I am wrong permanently." Gratitude offers a different angle. I was capable of serious harm, and yet people still chose to be kind to me. Instead of proving I am worthless, this reveals that relationships and mercy are bigger than my worst moments. This does not erase the need for repair or consequences. It simply allows goodness to enter even a guilty life. Later years also invite gratitude toward younger versions of yourself. This may feel strange, especially if you carry contempt for who you were. Yet the older self stands on foundations laid by that earlier person, sometimes confused, stubborn, frightened, but still walking, still trying. Saying inwardly, "Thank you for enduring what I could not yet understand," is a way of reconciling with your own history instead of spending old age in combat with ghosts. When death comes into clearer view, through illness, funerals, or the simple mathematics of time, gratitude can take on a final function: preparation. People who practice appreciation in later years often report less terror and more sadness mixed with awe. They do not feel ready to leave, but they feel less cheated. They have trained their eyes for decades to notice what was given as well as what was taken. Now they can look back and say, with trembling honesty, it was not everything I wanted. It was still something worth thanking. Practices from this chapter 1. When reflecting on your past, deliberately name both what you regret and what you are grateful for, allowing them to coexist. 2. Practice thanking your earlier selves for specific choices that helped you survive, rather than only criticizing them. 3. If you feel unworthy of kindness, explore that belief gently and experiment with receiving small acts of care without immediately pushing them away. Chapter 21, Collective Gratitude and the Work of Repairing the World. Thank you is often imagined as a private sentiment exchanged between individuals, yet it can also operate at collective levels, influencing how groups respond to injustice, crisis, and change. On one extreme lies escapist positivity, using gratitude to avoid acknowledging systemic problems. People say, just be thankful. Others have it worse when confronted with inequality, discrimination, or exploitation. This weaponized appreciation tells the suffering to remain quiet, to accept crumbs, to stop asking difficult questions. Psychologically, it is a defense mechanism, protecting those in comfort from having to face their participation in harmful systems. On the other extreme lies chronic outrage with no room for appreciation. Here, every benefit is interpreted as manipulation, every institution as irredeemable, every attempt at kindness as naive or compromised. Gratitude is dismissed as weakness or betrayal. While this stance may arise from legitimate anger, it often burns out those who hold it. The nervous system cannot live on pure indignation without collapsing into numbness or cynicism. Healthy collective gratitude navigates between these poles. It does not deny injustice, it empowers people to face it more steadily. At a social level, appreciation can be directed toward those who carry burdens for the community: caregivers, cleaners, drivers, teachers, health workers, volunteers, organizers. When their labor is acknowledged in more than ceremonial ways, through fair conditions, public recognition, and actual listening, gratitude becomes a force that stabilizes necessary roles and prevents silent exploitation. Collective thank you can also move backward in time. Communities may choose to honor ancestors, reformers, artists, thinkers, and unnamed ordinary people whose sacrifices created current possibilities. This is not sentimental nostalgia. It is realistic acknowledgement that present freedoms were purchased by someone's struggle. Such remembrance can fuel responsibility. Because others worked for this, I will not waste it. However, true collective gratitude includes clear sight. When history contains both progress and oppression, mature societies learn to thank specific contributions without sanctifying entire eras, leaders, or traditions. A country, for example, can express appreciation for those who built infrastructure or defended it from harm while also naming past crimes honestly. In personal terms, this mirrors the ability to say, I am thankful for what my family gave me, and I will not repeat their cruelty. On a more intimate scale, groups engaged in long-term work, teams, movements, neighborhoods, need regular rituals of thanks to sustain morale. Activism without appreciation burns out. Projects anchored only in criticism eventually lose direction. When members pause to acknowledge each other's efforts, resilience grows. People feel less like disposable instruments serving an abstract cause, and more like human beings participating in shared meaning. Collective gratitude becomes dangerous only when it demands silence or erases pain. When it is integrated with truth-telling and repair, it becomes a stabilizing force that allows societies and communities to keep working, day after day, on realities that would otherwise feel too heavy to bear. Practices from this chapter 1. Notice where gratitude is used to shut down complaints. Be thankful and stop talking, and refuse to participate in that pattern. 2. Engage in or support rituals, formal or informal, that honor the often invisible workers and ancestors who sustain your community. 3. In any group you belong to, introduce regular, sincere acknowledgement of members' efforts so that criticism and appreciation stay in balance. Awe, humility, and thank you, beyond transaction. Most everyday gratitude concerns clear exchanges. Someone gives, you receive. Yet human beings also experience a broader, less targeted form of thank you that arises in moments of awe, standing under a silent sky, holding a newborn, watching a storm, surviving an accident, hearing music that seems to rearrange something inside you. In such moments, people often say, I don't even know who I'm thanking. The experience feels larger than any particular person. Psychologically, this points to a dimension of gratitude that is not about repayment or fairness, but about humility before existence itself. Awe has measurable effects on the mind. It tends to shrink the sense of individual centrality. Worries about status, comparison, and petty grievances temporarily fade. You feel small, but not in a shaming way. Small in the sense of being part of something vast. This state can spontaneously generate gratitude even when your circumstances are far from perfect. The thought arises, despite everything unresolved, it is extraordinary that I am here at all. This form of thank you does not require adopting any particular belief system. It is a psychological orientation. Recognizing that countless conditions outside your control have made your life possible, cosmic, biological, historical, relational. You did not design your own heartbeat, invent language, construct the roads you travel, or raise yourself entirely. When this reality is felt rather than merely understood, gratitude becomes almost a reflex. There is a risk to avoid: using cosmic gratitude to bypass personal responsibility. Saying everything is a gift can become a way of ignoring harm or failing to apologize. Mature, awe-based appreciation does the opposite. It deepens accountability. When you truly grasp how many factors had to align for you to exist, hurting others carelessly begins to feel more serious, not less. You are damaging something fragile and rare. This wider gratitude also softens perfectionism. If you see life primarily as a project you must execute flawlessly, every mistake is intolerable. When you see life as an unearned opportunity within an unimaginable universe, errors remain important, yet they lose their absolute power. You are an unfinished participant, not a failed controller. Practically, cultivating awe does not require dramatic experiences. It involves intentional contact with what stretches your perspective. Learning about the mind, listening deeply to others, observing natural processes, attending to art, reflecting on improbable coincidences that shaped your path. Each encounter can evoke a quiet, objectless thank you, not addressed to any particular figure, but to the fact of being here at all. Such gratitude tends to foster gentleness. People anchored in awe are usually less interested in humiliating others or proving superiority. Their humility is not self-hatred, it is an accurate sense of scale. They can look at their own story with seriousness and kindness, recognizing both its uniqueness and its smallness inside a much grander unfolding. Practices from this chapter 1. Regularly expose yourself to experiences that evoke awe: nature, art, science, stories of resilience, and linger long enough to feel their impact. 2. When feelings of cosmic gratitude arise, allow them without forcing explanations. Treat them as invitations to humility and care. 3. Guard against using everything is a gift as an excuse to avoid apology or repair. Let your sense of wonder deepen, not weaken, your responsibility to others. Chapter 23. Crafting your own ethic of thank you. All the reflections so far point toward a simple, demanding question. What kind of person do you want to be in relation to the gifts, harms, and chances of your life? Gratitude at its deepest is not just a mood, it is an ethic, a set of chosen attitudes and behaviors that shape your character. An ethic of thank you has several pillars. 1. Lucid perception. You commit to seeing reality as fully as you can. You do not close your eyes to injustice, neglect, or cruelty. You also refuse to ignore kindness, effort, support, or beauty. You train your attention to hold both, instead of letting pain or comfort monopolize your vision. 2. Free appreciation. You decide that your gratitude will not be coerced. You might say thank you under pressure sometimes. Habits are strong, but your deeper allegiance is to honesty. You work toward making your appreciation voluntary, not a payment demanded by guilt, fear, or manipulation. This includes the right to be silent when thanks would betray your integrity. 3. Boundary generosity. Your ethic includes giving. You aim to become someone others can sincerely thank, not because you crave admiration, but because contribution feels aligned with who you choose to be. At the same time, you recognize your limits. You set boundaries to protect your capacity to keep giving without collapsing into resentment or martyrdom. 4. Ongoing self-reconciliation. You adopt a stance of firm, compassionate responsibility toward yourself. You admit wrongdoing without soft excuses. You also practice thanking yourself wherever you acted bravely, kindly, or wisely, even in small ways. This combination helps you evolve without internal warfare. 5. Orientation toward repair. When harm occurs, by you or around you, gratitude moves you toward restoration rather than avoidance. You recognize that relationships, communities, and inner worlds all require maintenance. Saying thank you for what is good makes you more, not less, motivated to mend what is broken. Translating this ethic into daily life means designing small, concrete commitments that fit your real circumstances. For example, I will not end a day without acknowledging at least one specific thing someone did that helped me. When I feel pressured to say thank you where I'm actually hurt, I will pause, breathe, and decide consciously how to respond. Once a week, I will deliberately thank someone for emotional labor they usually perform invisibly. When I catch myself replaying a failure, I will add one remembered moment of courage from the same period. These are not rules to impress anyone else. They are scaffolding for the person you are choosing to become. Over time, as this ethic matures, you may notice that gratitude appears even in unexpected corners. You feel a quiet thank you after hard conversations, not because they were pleasant, but because you faced reality instead of running. You feel it after ending a relationship that could not be made safe, grateful for the strength to step away. You feel it in the middle of ordinary tasks, recognizing that this, too, is part of the one life you have. In the end, the goal is not to think about gratitude forever. The goal is to live in such a way that appreciation has a natural home in you, woven into how you see, speak, choose, and respond, until thank you is no longer only a phrase you use, but a quiet signature of your entire presence. Practices from this chapter 1 define your own few core principles about gratitude: perception, freedom, generosity, self-treatment, repair, and write them down. 2. Translate those principles into small, realistic daily or weekly commitments that fit your actual life. 3. Revisit and adjust your ethic over time, letting it grow with you rather than remain a rigid list. The question, who am I becoming, stays open. Epilogue. One last thank you book's end. Lives continue. The work, the conflicts, the surprises, the silent battles, none of that stops when the final sentence is read. Thank you, however, can follow you out of these pages into whatever waits beyond them. You carry with you everything you have seen, suffered, and given. Some chapters of your story are not yet healed. Some questions may never receive clean answers. There will be days when gratitude feels distant, forced, or impossible, and days when it arrives uninvited, filling your chest with a sudden sense that being here, with all its costs, is still an astonishing chance. As you move forward, you do not need to remember every idea expressed here. If even a single thread remains, that you can notice more, receive more honestly, give with clearer boundaries, face regret without surrendering to it, and treat your own existence as something worth thanking, then this journey has already shaped you. There is one more thank you to name, and it belongs to you. Not in flattery, but in recognition. You chose to look directly at how you relate to giving, receiving, power, pain, pride, shame, and love. Many avoid such examination for a lifetime. Turning toward it is, in itself, an act of courage. So let this closing be simple and precise. Thank you for every time you have helped someone when it cost you something. Thank you for each moment you told the truth when hiding would have been easier. Thank you for surviving days you did not believe you could survive. Thank you for the work you have done and will still do to treat yourself and others with more dignity than the past may have offered you. May your future thank yous be freer than your old ones, kinder to yourself than before, and truer than any performance you once relied on. And when your own story comes to its final pages, may there be, underneath every joy and every wound, at least one quiet, steady sentence rising from your deepest self toward life itself. Thank you for all of it that I can honestly bless, and for the strength to face the rest.